Welcome on week 2 playoff edition of Hollinger and Duncan. John just flew in to whatever hotel he's in San Francisco. We are within 10 miles of one another. As we
Yes.
record, that's going to go to game 6 of Houston and Golden State tonight. But much has transpired since we last spoke, and we'll get to all of that playoff minutia, all the stuff you love to hear us talk about on Hollinger and Duncan. First, I want to remind everyone that you can sign up for our free newsletter. That's twice a week for Dan Feldman's Daily Dunks in your inbox. He just has awesome stats every day, catching up on the latest news. He does some awesome research for us, and we think it's one of the best daily written products out there to help you keep up with the league. And of course, you can consider subscribing to Dunc'd On Prime as well to get me and Danny and every Hollinger and Duncan, not just every other week as you get on the free feed. So we got some news to start with here, and Danny and I will probably talk more about Greg Popovich's legacy, the fact that he has officially stepped down as Spurs coach. But the news that Mitch Johnson will be taking over, what was your reaction to that?
Big Bill Guthridge vibes, who was the guy who took over from Dean Smith before North Carolina pivoted to Roy Williams. It seems like this was done with Pop's endorsement, as our Joe Barden is in the process of reporting. And that may have even been like part of the deal.
Yeah, well, Pop is the president of basketball operations, so I mean, it would seem he made this decision, or was certainly very involved.
Yeah. But I'm just not sure how long that. I mean, you're dealing with Victor Wembanyama's prime here. Like you're going to get to a point where you can't mess around. And Mitch Johnson, I mean, the reviews I would say are pretty middling at best so far. I mean, we'll see how he does this year with a full season and training camp and everything, and gets to put in his own system and everything, and is more the guy. I still can't help thinking that this is a placeholder, though. The people I think are breathing a little easier today are the folks in Utah, because there was a lot of smoke that they would go after your guy, Will Hardy, for this job, given his Spurs connections. And that obviously won't be happening now.
Yeah, well, at least not this year, right? I mean, I think Will has finished his 3rd year. They already picked up his 5th year option in Utah. They did that, I think, after like year 1, knowing that his task was going to grow a little more difficult. But yeah, I think I don't love not having a process. I never love that. The Spurs, of course, are a great organization. They've had a lot of continuity. I don't know if they're as great as they have been as an organization, quite frankly. And they also have, I mean, they could have had basically any coach they wanted. Now they might have had
this was the most coveted job opening in the league without a doubt. And that's true even if some other fairly high profile ones come open in the next few weeks. I think the Spurs was still going to be number 1. And so, I think there's continuity for continuity's sake, and there's continuity because you're awesome, and why would you change anything? And this feels more like the former than the latter.
Yeah, now they took a step forward this year when Victor was available, and maybe there's a feeling that like, oh, Mitch Johnson has earned this. Like they were better this year. I would say that Victor Wembanyama finishing 45 pick and rolls at the basket all season would indicate that they have some work to do. And I think some of the lineup constructions are not great as well. Again, Mitch Johnson is hamstrung by the fact that they are still kind of in development mode. They have some pieces like Castle, Sohan that they're trying to develop that are also very difficult to fit around. His backup center situation was absolutely terrible. So they really didn't have a guy who is a top 20 player at their position other than Victor Wembanyama on the team. So if you had to say, and they still kind of exceeded expectations, but I put that almost entirely on Victor, basically this season. And now they got De'Aaron Fox as well. So yeah, it's time to hit the gas pedal. And we'll see. Like, this could work. They had their own internal evaluation of Mitch Johnson. It seems like they had kind of been grooming him for this. There's so many guys on the Spurs tree, though, to not at least like do some interviews at this point, I think is not great. But this is, the Spurs have been very high in their own supply, but they have a lot of supply over the years as well. This is a very much, we know what we're doing. This is our culture, continuity, all this change. That's what the other organizations do. And so we shall see. But, I don't know what kind of contract Mitch Johnson is getting. And like you said, maybe this is a placeholder. Maybe Will Hardy has 1 year left on his deal, or Quinn Snyder's situation changes, or anybody else.
Can I throw another one at you?
Oh, please.
A guy who currently plays for the Spurs, who would make a pretty damn good head coach someday.
Would he? I don't know. I think he might be too insane. Although, you remember when we did our rankings of like the sanest NBA head coaches? And
it's short
we couldn't
list.
come up with a top 3.
Yeah.
The Tom Thibodeau, number 4 on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So you want to talk about the Suns front office situation as well? Yeah.
Brian Gregory, literally, I'm texting with people in Atlanta, wait, is this that Brian Gregory? The guy who was at Georgia Tech 15 years ago? His biggest qualification for the job was that a quarter century ago, he was an assistant coach on the team that Matt Ishbia played on at Michigan State. Apparently very close with Tom Izzo. And just basically, it sets us up for Matt Ishbia to be the GM. Basically is what this is. James Jones is like an advisor or whatever. It might as well, the press release might have said, James Jones has placed his name in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, from everything you hear, Jones had been disempowered for some time there.
Yes.
Or maybe since the moment Matt Ishbia.
Yeah. I think we know the exact day, actually. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And raided the kitty to trade for Kevin Durant. Yeah. I still, I know the Sun stuff hasn't worked out. I don't kill them as much as everyone else up until this last year. I would say obviously the Utah trade was just ridiculous.
The Beal trade, the Beal trade was ridiculous.
Okay, were you saying that at the time?
Yes.
Okay, I was not. I was foolish myself. I just didn't. I thought they were just in a really bad spot to begin with. I think that's what people kind of forget. Both with the KD trade. Should they have negotiated harder on the KD trade, or maybe waited until the summer? Maybe, instead of doing this exploding offer thing, would credit the Nets for doing that. But, and then, the Beal thing, I just didn't think he would be this terrible. That was kind of the problem. I realized that it wasn't a great fit, but I felt like they just once they had gone all in with KD, it's not like they really gave that much up to get Bradley Beal. And I thought he would be a third star. I thought they would have a top 3 offense in the league as a result of making that deal. And they just didn't. And then obviously their defense fell apart too. But so yeah, I didn't think obviously it was terrible in retrospect, but the big reason is just because Beal hasn't been good. If Beal had just been the player that he was in Washington, then it would have been fine, but he wasn't. So
it would have been okay. They would have won they still would have been 9th in the West.
If they had we're talking about the last 2 years too. No, if they had a top 3 offense in the league the last 2 years, they would have been very good. They would have been a low 50s to mid 50s win team. Maybe not this year because their defense was terrible, but then also Vogel wouldn't have got fired, and they probably would have still had a good defense. I don't know. Again, it obviously sucked. I don't defend it, but I also, the idea that, oh my God, this is just so fucking ridiculous for them to do this. I admit that I was not thinking that at the time, so it's hard for me to. And I would say most people were not thinking that either. Like I think, like the Suns, they had just lost in the second round of the playoffs, and they actually gave Denver their best series. Now the other thing that was a big problem was the Kamara Ayton trade. In retrospect, like that, I thought really hurt them too. Like if they had Tamani Kamara and I mean, they kind of screwed things up with Ayton as well. I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to relitigate that. Let's talk about the playoffs.
Yeah. All right.
They're screwed. They got to trade Devin Booker, and putting in a yes man like this means they're not going to trade Devin Booker, and it's just going to be more pain.
Yes.
All right. Who would you say has been the best team so far?
It's hard because we've only been through one round, so you have to calibrate for the opposition. I mean, Cleveland's looked really good, though. I mean, you gotta say, like,
I mean, I guess like this Miami team. I don't know if I buy Kenny saying that they're a 4 seed, but I don't think they were that terrible, and Cleveland just completely broke them. Eric Spoelstra, Bam Adebayo, I had him looking like it was 2007 getting swept in the playoffs by the Bulls. It's probably the most embarrassing postseason for the Heat since that point. And yeah, they put up the highest offensive rating in a series by like 10 points per 100 possessions.
And that was
on record.
And with Garland missing games.
Yeah, their defense looked awesome. Their depth looked awesome. Their offense was just pinging the ball around the floor. I was just blown away by how good they were. And you just don't I mean, even Oklahoma City, right? Like you thought it was going to be like that with Memphis, but no, like teams generally figure out a way to be at least a little competitive, and especially in the home games, like to lose those 2 games at home, that was the worst defeat that anyone had ever suffered over games 3 and 4 of a playoff series.
Those games in Miami were the games I expected in Memphis when I went there. You know what I mean? Like based on how the games 1 and 2 went, and the Grizzlies actually put up a really good. I mean, they certainly would have won Game 3 if Ja was there. They might have also won Game 4.
Yeah. And in terms of whether I would edit my overall predictions at all, I am thinking very seriously about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like Boston, we'll talk more about the Orlando series. That was a tough series. Statistically, actually, they dominated that more than it kind of seemed like they did as we were watching it unfold live. So, and Boston has a lot of great players, but I would say a lot of their guys are not looking awesome right now. They got some injury issues. Like I think Porzingis, they're going to need more out of him than they got in that Orlando series.
Yeah.
And I'm also worried about him defensively, maybe so they're going to be really reliant on Al Horford now too. Like Tatum is looking good. Brown's looking decent. Drew Holiday missed a couple of games with a hamstring injury. So I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to pick until we get there, which I assume we will. I'm thinking very seriously about picking the Cavs to make it to the finals.
So that was the biggest thing when I looked at what would I change about my worldview now, other than obviously increasing the odds of Minnesota making the conference finals. Is that Cleveland looked better than I thought, and Boston, I saw them in Game 4 in Atlanta. They're just like, they're a little banged up. Orlando, I think, provided a little bit of a roadmap for like how you can at least limit this offense a little bit. And granted, they had personnel that could do it, and other teams may not. But for them to take away the threes to the extent they did, I think there's a roadmap in there that some other teams can follow. We'll see if Cleveland is one of them. I mean, with their small guards, it may be a little more difficult to be like, okay, Garland, go ahead and pick up Porzingis on this switch. But between those two things, that's the one I really want, because I picked Boston to come out of the East and lose to OKC in the finals. And now I'm wondering if it's Cleveland that's the team that's going to come out of the East. I want to see how they look against Indiana, because Indiana, I think, has been underrated the whole year. Like, they're good. And they're going to give Cleveland a test.
All right, let's talk about some of the big stars. Are there any star performances that you think you wanted to dig into a little bit more?
Shout out Giannis. That he, delivered at the level he did on a crumbling Milwaukee team and nearly got them to a game 6 at home, at least. Now, I'll put a little bit of an asterisk on that because I think this series did highlight something that you've been saying for a while, which is that defensively, Giannis isn't the guy he was 2, 3, 5 years ago or whatever. And you saw it with Halliburton scoring on him on those switches late in the game, obviously.
Yeah, that was not amazing. He had 5 block shots and 5 steals in the series, and the Pacers got whatever they wanted to basically at the rim in the series as well. So that was, now he had a huge offensive load. I get that, but I was hoping that we might see from him the defense that we saw in the NBA Cup, and that's why I picked the Bucks, which was obviously very stupid in the end. And so that was what I was thinking, is that he had it in him to ramp up to close to the levels he was at defensively the last time we saw him on a long playoff run in 2022, when he was just, I mean, if you go back and watch the film of that series against Boston, they were terrified to shoot against him around the rim, and now he just doesn't even get over there. And obviously on the switches, he got beat up pretty badly too. So yeah, I mean, as much as people want to say that, like, yeah, he carried the team, like, yeah, he was able to have a pretty high usage and distribute some once they figured out that they should actually play the players who weren't awful. But he's just kind of not that guy defensively anymore. And someone who can't shoot, like, he's pretty difficult to stop. But I think if you have the right personnel, you can. Like, I actually am lower on Giannis after this performance. I know not a lot of people would say that, but this just basically kind of confirmed to me. And also he's saying, like, oh, I want to have the ball more. I want to have the ball more now. Like, that's not really, I think, the best thing for the offense. I think that's been part of why the partnership with he and Dame didn't reach its heights. The other was just that they never got an offensive rebound. In the team didn't. But part of that is because of the way Giannis plays. So you can't have another rebounder around the basket when he's playing, because you have to get out of his way so he can get to the bucket.
It's going to be an issue for the Rockets next year, I think.
Actually, he and Steven Adams would be a fascinating combo. I actually think they would work great together. We'll talk more about that in a second. Jason Tatum really delivered against a difficult Magic defense. Definitely. And I mean, we could talk about it now. This is in my best coaching adjustments, but I thought that Jamal Mosley and the Magic, they'd done this in the regular season too, but they did what I called island basketball. They just weren't going to help at the rim under any circumstances. And you started to really see it in that game 3, where they're just like, no, we're not going to give up a 3 unless it's off the dribble under any circumstances. And Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, like, we've got big physical defenders. You want to try to go after Corey Joseph, Kristaps Porzingis. You want to try to post up and turn over your right shoulder every single time and try to go through our arms, like, be our guest. And Boston had a few counters to that. Like, they got Porzingis some slips to the rim in game 4. And obviously game 5, the floodgates opened after they were 0 for 6 on threes in the first half. Game 5. And, Banchero got into foul trouble, and finally the Magic, just the floodgates opened. But yeah, that would be fascinating to see whether these other teams can employ a similar strategy. Cleveland switched more than any team this year, actually. So, but they do have a few more pigeons to go after than the Magic. What did you think of the performances of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner?
It was, to me, it wasn't that different from what we saw in the regular season. I actually thought there were a few more times where they had action with each other, which I think was one of the problems all season. Was kind of like Franz's turn, Paolo's turn, and there wasn't a lot of interplay between the two. But again, I mean, Paolo just lives off a tough shot diet, and making that work, I think, is, Orlando. I think Jeff Weltman talked about it After the season. I think they want to bring in more veterans. I think they want to bring in a guard who can break defenses down and create some easier shots. So it's not always Paolo or Franz who has to do it. And they just need more shooting all over the place.
Yeah, you do wonder what Paolo would look like if he had more spacing, because he can overpower guys. And I think his mid-ranger is at least starting to become somewhat of a weapon. I've always worried more about what he could do against being guarded by bigger players like Al Horford. Like, I mean, just like that guy's unbelievable what he is doing now at age 38 to be this piece.
So I tweeted this or skeeted it or whatever you call it during the first round, but Al Horford retiring might be the actual thing that threatens Boston's dominance.
Yeah.
Well,
just because he's not looking great.
Yeah. Like he's so unique in that role where he's a 3-point spacer on offense who can make good decisions with the ball, but he could mash a guy if you really need him to. He did that even in the Orlando series a couple times where he got it on his spot on the left block, and it was just like Atlanta in 2009 or whatever, 4 dribbles, right hand, and it's mechanical, but it's effective. And so what I'm getting to, I wonder if that's really the existential threat to Boston's dominance is what happens when Al decides to hang it up.
Yeah, now maybe Porzingis, the hope was that he was going to take over, but in terms of that potentially being taken advantage, like that Cleveland series, and then if it gets there, an Oklahoma City series will be an amazing test of that, because he may end up being the guy that they move on from. And they're just like, hey, if this guy's not going to be able to dominate on switches, maybe we'll just try to find a cheaper option there. But back to Paolo and Franz.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, but Boston moving on from one of their expensive guys this offseason is a thing that I've been hearing about since last offseason. So that's a thing to definitely watch out for.
Yeah, well, now if they win the championship, maybe it becomes easier to keep everyone. But in any event, Franz and Paolo, I think it's just so tough to judge them with this Magic situation. I mean, they had essentially the worst 3-point shooting series that any team has ever had. I asked Dan to look into that. I'll get that stat in a second here, but it was pretty remarkable how awful they were. It's like, man, you would think that like just variance would maybe allow them to do better over a 5-game sample, but no, absolutely not. I mean, one other guy I got a shout out to, Draymond Green, just continues to be awesome. The fact that he's still this good at 35 at 6'6", like I thought he was this good.
This good on defense.
Well, okay, but he was never good on offense.
Okay, he's starting to explore new levels of that. I'm worried, but yeah,
that's true. I mean, he's not doing much these days. But he is what they need him to be. Like if they didn't have him, they wouldn't be this level of team. Like it's just, and of course, obviously playing with Steph really helps. So let's see here. Yes, Orlando's 3-point percentage was the lowest in a series in 6 years, 26%, and second lowest in a decade. Not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Best prediction that you have made.
Pacers probably. I picked Golden State in 6. We'll see what happens tonight. So that one I think is held up.
I had Nuggets in 7, and we will see if that one holds up.
Yeah, because I had the Clippers in that series. I was there last night, and some nervous moments by the Clippers in the 4th, but they managed to pull it up. The biggest thing in that series, though, is fatigue. I mean, both that 4th quarter, everyone was just dying. The coaches were trying to basically get by without subbing hardly at all, and it was a mess. Like James Harden needed a tow truck to change ends by the second half of that 4th quarter.
How was the Intuit Dome playoff experience?
It's okay.
People have been like talking it up as being so awesome. I can never tell on TV, and also because we do the live broadcast, we turn the volume way down so we don't hear the commentators.
Here's the thing. So they built the wall, right? Which is a cool thing, but everyone goes at the wall in the first half because the visiting team can choose.
Yeah.
So it would be much more of a factor if teams were going at it in the second half with like the biggest shots of the game. But it's like, okay, like you're cheering and stuff, but like, it's a second quarter. Peyton Watson's at the line. Like, fine, whatever. But it's like you miss all the tension of like, the noise that could create. If there was a rule requiring teams to go at the wall in the second half, that would be better.
But you're saying like it still was good though, right? Like, do you think the wall actually makes a difference for the overall arena?
Yeah, I do think the wall is definitely the coolest feature of that arena. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Either that or the toilets.
No, there was a line. I retweeted you on that. That the arena is a failure.
My reporting from last night. Yes.
That is intrepid stuff right there. Yeah, you can only go on to Twitter for toilet-related observations at this point. Everything else on Blue Sky.
Yeah, actually, I did do that one on Twitter. Yeah. Sometimes I don't even know which app I'm on because they look so similar. Because I'm scrolling both of them to find out what everyone else is saying. So,
yeah. So that's it. All right. So, would you say it was like one of the more intimidating playoff environments, or not really?
No, I can't get to that. No.
Okay. Worst prediction for me, other than Milwaukee, Indiana, was going Lakers in 7 because I had it right at first blush on this show, and then I changed it after thinking about it more with Danny, and yeah, not very good. All right, best coaching job, some good playoff adjustments. I will start with that. Okay. I thought Ty Lue has done a pretty good job with just changing up his rotations and lineups, because the Nuggets have a very predictable rotation where they're going to play Nikola Jokic the whole first quarter, and then David Adelman's going to try to not shit himself for the first 2 minutes of the second and the fourth, and then bring him back in, as long as he can possibly just white knuckle it through. So Lou did a lot of interesting things with Ivica Zubac. First, he wasn't matching him up with Jokic and was bringing him in at the start of the second to mash the smaller unit. So then Adelman adjusts going to DeAndre Jordan, and then he switched up, matched Zoo up mostly more, at least with Jokic, still went small a little bit, and then went with Batum at center to start the second and fourth and take advantage of DeAndre Jordan being out there. And so I thought that just like got a couple of nice little advantages when he first made those changes.
Yeah, so the first, I would say, misstep from Adelman was last night when, at the beginning of the second quarter, he left DeAndre. He put in DeAndre kind of auto sub, even though he didn't need DeAndre out there. And the Nuggets made 4 straight turnovers to start the quarter. And that was when the game started tilting the Clippers' way. And then, obviously, Ty Lue with the adjustment to just play Batum the whole second half because they weren't guarding Chris Dunn.
Yeah, no, that was really good too. What else?
Surely Batum starts game 7, right?
I never know, but I mean they might be like kind of saving him, but it's game 7. So
or he pitches a complete game out of the bullpen, one or the other.
I do think there is something to the idea though of you can appreciate the gravity of the moment, but you also don't necessarily want to send to your team the idea that this is desperate and only this one lineup will allow us to compete. And if we make any subs whatsoever,
we saw an extreme version of that.
Lose the game immediately.
I mean,
like you go with your best group, sure, but I do think there is a psychological idea of like, you're almost admitting to your team that it's going to take a fucking miracle for us. Like, you don't want your team to be in that mindset.
Yeah, and obviously we're delving into JJ Redick here. To me, it's okay not to trust the other guys, but you can't tell them you don't trust them. And that was the I mean, the message was just so loud and clear.
Well, I think you also, to the guys who actually are in the game, I think you're possibly sending, in addition to just the psychology of not getting rest. Like, I don't know what the sports science is of, oh man, if you took him out for 2 minutes before this TV timeout and brought him back in, does he really recover so much more in 5 minutes than he does in 2 during the timeout or something? Like, I don't know what the science is on that, but I do think there is something mentally there, and even mentally, just to be able to sit, watch, and like just have a break mentally, sort of like steel yourself for going back in, as opposed to, all right, the timeout's over, I'm gonna trudge onto the court. But then also just being like, hey, like we are so desperate here that nobody can come out of the game, and like that's what our coach thinks, and basically like we are on that much of a razor's edge for possibly losing this.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think, like, playing Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, like that wouldn't have like lost them that game. Like, those guys weren't like so terrible. Like,
I don't think playing Hayes would have lost them the game.
Yeah.
So that was what I mean. Minnesota, that game 5, but I was there 2 nights ago. Minnesota should have won that game by 50. Like, they got whatever open shot they wanted every single trip. And it was only outlier bad shooting by Minnesota that kept that thing even remotely close.
No, I completely agree on that. I mean, they got utterly dominated. And we got news today that LeBron James actually suffered a grade 2 MCL strain when Dante DiVincenzo ran into him. I couldn't really see that on the replay. I thought he was going to be okay, but yeah, I mean, that is that like outside of the knee situation is what would cause that. So, I mean, they would have been done even if they could have found a way to win that game. But what's your diagnosis for the Lakers on what they're missing?
They have too many shitty players and not enough good ones. Like, I don't know how much simpler to play.
I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter.
I mean, Minnesota had 8 players that they trusted, and the Lakers had 3. I mean, that was the difference, right? Like, the other guys in Lakers, even though, like, Hachimura was pretty good in Game 5, Finney-Smith had his moments, neither of them were cracking Minnesota's top 8. And the bench, I mean, like the drop off there compared to what Minnesota could come in with, it was such a stark difference. And like, the Lakers just have to fix the back end of their roster. It's the thing, the Westbrook trade, they've never recovered from that in terms of the back end of their roster.
Yeah, I mean, if they had Kyle Kuzma, where would they be?
Well, they could have at least traded Kyle Kuzma for somebody who was, more
useful.
Yeah, useful. That's the word I'm looking for.
So this is, I acknowledge what everyone else says. They need another wing defender, and they need a rim running center, and probably also like a shooter off the bench. Like that, I think they need all 3 of those things to really have a team that you feel great about contending for a championship. But I will say this. They're playing with 5-out spacing most of the time. The Wolves are a very good defense. The Lakers are 14th in offense in the playoffs. Like, okay, you want to talk about the rim running center and defending? Like, all right, they couldn't stop anyone. Great. I completely agree with that. Big problem for the team. These guys are supposed to be like amazing offense. That didn't happen, right? To me, that's on Luka, LeBron, and Reeves. I know Luka put up some big numbers in this series early, but he wasn't the schematic problem that he was before. He wasn't setting up wide open threes everywhere. He wasn't getting a ton of assists. He wasn't getting to the basket and finishing and just making you feel totally hopeless. They switched Rudy Gobert onto him, no problem. LeBron didn't even think about trying Gobert by the end. He had like 2 layups on him early. He's dealing with this groin thing maybe too. And then Reeves basically stopped even trying to shoot a 2-pointer by the end of the series. So that, to me, even if you want to be like, and I think those guys could all be better, but they weren't good enough. That was the number one reason they lost the series, more than all this depth stuff and the defense. They should they actually didn't defend so poorly that they couldn't win if they had come through on offense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Their three best players were not good enough, in addition to everything else that was going on.
Yeah, and again, you can say they don't have the depth, but they had two guys. We'll put it this way. You're not going to get two better offensive players in that spot than Rui Hachimura and Dorian Finney-Smith when you consider that they're spacing the floor, right? Like you might say we need better defensive players in that spot, sure, but your offense is probably going to get worse as a result of that. Like you're not going to have 5-out spacing. If you compare what Luka did in 2022 with that spacing to what happened in these playoffs, there's no comparison. He's way better back then.
Yeah. Nico Harrison redemption tour.
A few other interesting coaching things. What I'm going to call the step up zone rather than matchup zone by Houston, where basically it's not a box and one, but anytime Steph runs into the area of any of the players, they basically just follow him and deny him the ball until he runs into the zone of another player, and then they basically shake hands and hand him off. We'll see what the Warriors have as a counter. I'm going to go ahead and put out on a limb that I don't think they used their best counter in Game 5. They might have held a little something back in that one. But that was us, to find a way to get Steven Adams and Alperen Şengün on the floor together so that they could then mash them on the offensive glass. It was great. And so that was really good by Udoka. He's had some other things I haven't loved, including wussing out and taking Steven Adams out of the game before we even saw whether he made the free throws in Game 4.
Yes.
Any other coaching things for you?
There was a lot of discussion about Detroit taking Asar Thompson off the floor late last night when he was guarding Brunson. Now the Knicks didn't really score on those possessions, so I don't know.
No, they did. They did. They got 5 points on Schroeder.
Okay.
He got an and one on him, and then the one that really stood out to me was he just dribbled around for 23.5 seconds and then shot a layup under the basket. Asar would have never let him do that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the one where he pivoted and got the layup off. Yes. Yeah. So that was interesting because Asar didn't have fouls on him.
Yeah, I don't know. He committed one foul, and JB just I think JB legitimately thought that he wasn't going to do the best job. I think that's why he took him out. He only played 14. It was 14 minutes in the second half. He came in at the 9:30 mark. He could have continued, especially with all the breaks down the end. I don't think it was anything to do with it. I think it was just a performance thing, which I didn't see if anyone actually asked him about that. Usually when the playoff series is over, everyone's more focused on the narrative of the whole season and stuff. So you don't get those sorts of questions. Any other coaching stuff for you?
I think we could probably leave it at that.
I got a couple more for you.
Okay.
I actually thought Doc Rivers switching everything with the Bucks was the right move. It didn't go great. He kind of got some shit for it. But you can't play a drop coverage against Tyrese Haliburton. You can't blitz Tyrese Haliburton. That was all that they could do. And Kevin Porter Jr. held up okay in the post on Siakam. By the time they got the right personnel out there, it wasn't bad. They defended pretty well in that Game 5. Obviously, Game 4 they were totally shell shocked, and they won Game 3.
Took balls to pull Brook Lopez off the floor, basically. Too.
Yeah,
might be, yeah. Yes, a surprising...
Crucible might have got him a little bit there.
A surprising crucible there, definitely.
One other thing I want to put a pin in just for next year. Thomas Isalo believes basically that he's going to put his matchup that he wants on a guy. And he just kept Scottie Pippen Jr. or John Conchar, if that's who it was, on Shea the whole time. He wasn't going to switch. Guard screening, nope, you're just locked to this guy. And he used Zach Edey pretty well, had 7 blocks. I wonder if we may see the put this guy on him and never switch approach come back against a lot of these dudes. Like, you can't do that probably against Steph because he's just too good moving without the ball and getting screens. But for these more guys like Shea who don't really move that much without the ball, maybe we're just like, nah, we're not going to switch. We're going to just keep this guy on. And like, could that possibly come back into vogue? Because I do think there is something to just be like, no, we're never giving you a break. We're putting this guy on you, Tony Allen style.
I was going to say, that was Tony Allen's whole thing, was that he was great at navigating screens too. So it was easier to do that. But like, even when we played Golden State, we would put Tony Allen on Clay and we didn't switch any of that shit. Like, Tony just stayed attached the whole time.
Yeah. No, he also had Zach Randolph and Gasol, and it was just generally a different time. And like, teams weren't doing, because where teams switch the most now is just any guard screening action. They'll just auto switch it really soft.
Exactly. And a lot of times you don't need to do that, and the guard setting the screen isn't that good a screener.
Yeah. So I thought that's just something to put a pin in. Obviously they lost. But I just, it's something that was like, could be a trend maybe to come back in.
Yeah.
And I also loved Chris Finch being willing to just switch Rudy Gobert most of the time. Even though
switch and live with drama. It was that was like the initial decision. That was the key to that series. I thought was that I think the Lakers thought they'd do a lot more like showing and hedging and kind of shit. And
and they kicked the shit out of them whenever they did that. It was so maddening when they like the third quarter of game 4, for example, or even like at times in game 5, they would actually put 2 on the ball and like then they would get carved up immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Finch, to me, that coming out of that Minnesota series, I was like, we had Finch too low when we did our coach rankings. That was my takeaway. I was like,
I thought I had him higher than you.
Okay, maybe it's just I had him too low. We got to give this guy a little more respect than we've shown him.
Couple other things. I mean, I thought the Pistons-Knicks series, neither coach particularly covered themselves in glory. I did like a few things that are like Tom Thibodeau going under on Cade Cunningham in game 6 was really good. He went 0 for 8. He lost confidence in that shot completely, which he was 5 out of 28 on threes for the series. So that was, even though wild. The stats might say don't go under on him, that was really solid. Obviously, we talked about the Asar thing. JB not finding another way to avoid putting his center on Towns other than Tobias Harris. And even at the end of game 6, he had Duren on Towns. It was really, I don't know why he went that way. Obviously, Tibbs, not enough Brunson Towns pick and roll, not using Towns enough. Towns getting 1 3-point attempt in game 6, 4 of 10 from the field, while Brunson just shoots every time. Like, they have enough talent that they're able to win this series, but I don't think that they did anything other than just out-talent them.
Yeah. And even then, that was an even series, right? Like, New York happened to have 4 to Detroit's 2, but that, in terms of, like, actual quality of the teams after those 6 games, I mean, what did you think the gap was, right? It's like... Yeah,
I mean, it was basically just... Brunson being better than Cade in the clutch is what it boiled down to. Like the Pistons clutch scoring was really bad. I want to actually look up what that is. So give me some surprising players to you.
Surprising players. I don't know if this is surprising. Ivica Zubac, I mean, this is a coming out party. I mean, his third quarter defensively last night, where he's picking up Jokic, he's picking up Murray on switches, he's protecting the rim. Like, he's just been, like, fundamentally, he's just been everywhere without being. It's not as spectacular as a lot of elite defenders, but man, is he effective. He just shuts down where he needs to be. So super impressed with him, and then he's had a really good offensive series too.
I think he's done the best job anyone has ever done of defending Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
At least certainly in this iteration, once he really ascended to MVP level. And certainly the best anyone's done since Jamal Murray was available to pair with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the job description is you got to also be able to guard Jamal Murray, and he's switched on to Jamal Murray and totally been fine there too.
Yeah. Jaden McDaniels being able to not only guard Luka but take it to him offensively.
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing for Minnesota in winning that series. We got to shout out Gary Trent Jr., who had a great series for Milwaukee.
Yeah, Gary Trent Jr.
Until he fumbled that one pass out of bounds at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was tough. Pistons offensive rating in the clutch, not that bad actually. 109.1. They had some like massive droughts. Did turn it over on 22% of their possession. So, yeah, Gary. Some of the shots he was making at the end of that game 5 were ridiculous. How about Tobias Harris? Probably had his best ever playoff run. Like, he played that way for Philly. Now, of course, he's more empowered for the Pistons, but if he'd played that way for Philly, Philly might have advanced. He might still be a Sixer if he'd played
well, right? Yeah.
For Philly. I thought Mike Conley had a really good series for Minnesota.
Woo!
Just, like, made some great plays defensively.
It's defense on Reeves, right? Like he was, he would just get into him and like get his hands on the ball and stuff, and yeah,
we thought he was going to be a big weak link, and he did a great job of hedging. And they never, I don't recall more than like 1 or 2 times they took advantage of him, and he was really helpful moving the ball on the second
Game
side.
5. Did you see the clip I posted of his Game 5 rim protection on LeBron?
He blocked him twice in this series. He got
a piece of the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was great, like giving them that 8th guy as well. Naz Reid too, another guy who just held up switching on the perimeter just fine. Randall was probably the most vulnerable, but he was still pretty decent too. I mean, that's I thought he had a really good matchup in this series, and when he's not asked to be the number 1 guy and not coming off a terrible ankle injury, he was able to be effective. And when he's also was just like the biggest, baddest guy out there for a lot of the series. And then Steven Adams too. Like he's probably having his best ever playoff series right now.
Well, to see his rim protection, he's getting up off the floor. Like he is athletically, like he looks back now where he didn't for a long time. And I think that's one of the keys to making that lineup work in the latter part of the season is that Steven Adams is like he's getting up to the square when he goes to challenge a shot now, and so that's made him much more of a problem.
And then on the offensive end, he's one of the guys I talked about this with Dan the other day that I just have misevaluated so badly about how good he is on offense, because as a pick and roll guy, he's amazing. But of course, now he's playing with another big. And you're like, well, how is that supposed to work? Well, what he does is just anytime someone gets the ball and is about to do anything, he just goes and stands right under the basket. And he either begins pushing the guy up the lane, and then the guy freaks out and tries to get inside of him and then can't help it all. And Alperen Şengün, as long as he's not being guarded by Draymond Green, just goes right to the basket. Or he can duck in for a quick pass, or he'll just get the offensive rebound. Like it's not vertical spacing. It's not any kind of spacing. It's more just like black hole spacing, where he just like sucks in everything around him and then provides space for everyone else. Yeah.
It's been pretty cool to see.
And there are plenty of other guys who, like Zach Edey, could absolutely play that way. I think he needs to get more physical, but he could absolutely play that way, and he would have the ability to finish more of those tips, or also like get quick duck-ins. Like I actually like Memphis really needs to figure out how to use him more offensively. I think he could be a real force for them.
I think there are a lot of people in Memphis who agree with you.
About 15 minutes left here. Any other surprising, disappointing players?
Can we shout out Aaron Nesmith? Just a good series from top to bottom.
Yeah. Guarded Giannis. Like he's just a really good player. Like when they took him out of the starting lineup for Mathurin, I was like, well, I guess he got hurt, but no, he needs to be in
there. Yeah. I missed on that one. I really thought that extension was overvaluing him, and they made out like bandits on it.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a Najee-like extension.
Not a Najee. Let's not go there. But I did think they had overvalued him at the time, and clearly they did not.
A Nasir Little-like extension. Yeah, but Neesmith actually had some flashes in his first year there. Most of those
cheap extensions like that, teams do end up regretting. Because it's like you're kind of paying a guy who's like, well, we're paying him to be our 8th guy. And like, because if anything happens to him, then he's not even good enough to play. And so it can get a little tricky with those. But yeah,
I guess it depends where you're at as a team, right? And Denver needed some matching salary, but because they just had their 5-man unit they thought was awesome, so they needed someone else who could maybe get traded at some point. But yeah, obviously that was just not the guy to bet on. And if you're a team that's not that good and doesn't have really impacted books, then you're like, yeah, let's take a risk on this. If it doesn't work out, it's $7 million. Who cares? And we might get something really good. Most disappointing players we talked about: Luka Reeves and LeBron. Talked about every Orlando Magic player when they step behind the arc. Anyone else that sticks out to you that you just were really hoping for big things from that just didn't work out?
So Michael Porter Jr. is having a tough time. It's going to be interesting to see if he's on the floor in the second half in Game 7 or if it's Westbrook again. But I think he's really important. It's kind of amazing the Nuggets are 3-3 without getting much from Porter. Because
he was good in game 5 and maybe the end of Game 4. Obviously, he's dealing with that shoulder issue. Too.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Tim Hardaway Jr. had a rough time. Obviously, he should have had a couple free throws at the end of Game 4, which didn't help. But Detroit leaned on him a lot throughout the whole year, and I thought, personnel-wise, that's one of the things they have to look at. Why exactly were we playing this guy this much?
I mean, he wasn't disappointing to me because I knew he wasn't good. Like, he should have been playing 10 minutes a game off the bench. And the fact also, Beasley has more brain farts defensively, but he's so much more dynamic as a shooter than Hardaway. Hardaway had this great start to Game 4, but other than that, I don't recall him having another good stretch in the series.
Yeah, I agree with that. Cade, disappointing series, I would say. Didn't shoot it well. Turnover bug definitely came back in a big way, which has always been kind of his one of his other weaknesses. Much is expected from him, as a star player.
I thought this wasn't an incredibly difficult matchup. OG Anunoby was the one guy who theoretically should have been able to guard him. And, he had Towns he could go after. He had Brunson he could go after. And he just wasn't that dominating. The transition stuff dried up at least a little bit too, which it's always going to happen in the playoffs. He was so awesome there. But to shoot 18% from 3 and under 50% on 2s, 5.3 turnovers. It was not, I thought he had some moments defensively, but also had some pretty big brain farts on transition plays and back cuts. So this is his first playoffs. I'm not disappointed in him, but I also think it was an opportunity for him to show that he was more ascended even than we had seen in the regular season, and that wasn't the case.
No, we didn't quite get there.
Best game.
Best game, got to be the Clippers Nuggets with the Aaron Gordon dunk. It was Game 4, right?
Yep. Still haven't seen a photo of the light off while Aaron Gordon's hand is not on the ball anymore. But there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it because it's pretty amazing that it really went down to 60 frames per second. We still don't have conclusive proof.
Because the Hawkeye camera, it was between frames, right? Would have been the point where first point where the ball is out of the hand and the light is still off. So you're sort of piecing it together from two different frames, but you don't have the one in the middle that would tell you definitively. Amazing that it came down to that.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever see that again in any game for it to be that close. Because like a dunk too is just, it's a weird shot in terms of when you're letting it go relative to just taking a normal shot.
Yeah, unless you do the Carmelo like quick dunk.
LA Minnesota game 4 was also awesome, and that just gave us so much fodder to discuss. Pacers Bucks game 5. Sorry, Bucks. I mean,
because we got overtime out of that. I thought the ending of Detroit, New York, ending of Detroit, New York last night, we were all sitting in the media room in LA watching that fourth quarter. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was a great shot by Jalen Brunson. Anytime someone hits a shot like that to end a competitive series, it's
and amazing. The move. I mean, not the shot, the move.
Yeah.
I mean, hard left between the legs, CSR, and then to hit the shot.
Warriors Rockets game 4 was a ton of fun as well. That was a great one.
That was a good game. Yeah.
And worst game would be Rockets Warriors game 5.
The Memphis Grizzlies OKC Thunder game 1. Gotta be
but that had entertainment value to see if the Thunder would set the record for biggest blowout in an NBA playoff game.
Okay.
Same thing with game 4. I was actually really excited for the end of game 4 of Cleveland Miami to see.
Okay.
And Pelle Larsson ruined my moment by hitting a 3 late. So what do you think of Golden State's decision to go Ray Guy on that game?
I mean, shades of 2022 in Memphis, right?
Yeah, more than shades. That was a carbon copy.
I was at that game in Memphis 3 years ago, and it was obvious from like 5 minutes in, like, wow, okay, I guess they're just focused on game 6 here. So it's, the emotions and the human nature of a series, I think a lot of times dictate some of that ebb and flow. It's hard to offset the psychology of the fact that you have that game at home coming up in the bag. You're flying home either way. When you're that team that's up 3-1, the other team's going to come out super desperate. I mean, Houston also made every shot in Golden State's defense, right?
Yeah, but they also shot 75% from 2 in the first half, and Golden State took 18 of their first 24 shots as threes. Like, they were not trying. And now they have an old team. Jimmy is still pretty limited. Like, he doesn't want to like go fly and like mess up his back again. But also like that in Memphis, John Morant was out for this series. Like, they knew they were going to be okay, although they still almost lost that game 6 in that series. So I think I'm probably on board with it. It was kind of weird to just totally punt a playoff game. And they have an old team, but we'll see. Could come back and bite them in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, once they were down by 30 or whatever in the third quarter.
Of course. But Steve Kerr also like said before the game, like, let's gotta see how it goes. Might pull everyone early. It's like,
he knew his team.
Yeah, but like teams win 30% of the time in that situation, and this is a team that, like, I think the Rockets have gotten stronger as the series has gone on.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what we get tonight for sure.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, here we go. That crucible. All right.
Chris Dunn.
Chris Dunn got crucibled.
Chris Dunn. All right.
He withstood for a while, and then
second half DNP last night.
Oh, Chris Dunn. I can't believe he lasted as long as he did. Honestly, even as good as he was, but he also didn't have the defensive impact yesterday, so that was the big issue.
I just don't think the matchup is there where it's where you get the most out of him defensively. So it makes it harder to keep him on the floor.
Well, he was good. I thought he was good against Murray, and then they tried he closed games earlier in the series. But I mean, I agree with you, Batum, because their biggest problem is they just weren't scoring it well enough. I think they should be able to score at will against Denver if they just space the floor. In terms of Ash, the Lakers, like, they don't even have anywhere to sit down when the starters come out. Like, the entire bench, the bench area, the Gatorade coolers, it's all just been utterly immolated. They have nothing. They just, like, LeBron, it's just JJ Redick. JJ Redick, he can't even talk to his assistants anymore now. Did you hear that? He doesn't even talk to him. So they're were you there for that, by the way? Were you in that presser when he walked out?
I was not in that presser. I was out on the court. I unfortunately missed that. But before that game, somebody was complaining about Redick not making adjustments, and I was like, well, what's the adjustment? If you only have 5 guys you can have on the court, there's only so many ways to place them, and you know what I mean? Like, so if you can't play anyone on your bench at all, I mean, it's a little bit of what Adelman is dealing with in Denver too. Like, if you don't have substitution adjustments, then you're limited to schematic adjustments, and there's only so many of those you can really make in the course of a game.
Yeah, they can either double team Ant or switch and then try to load up to him, and neither of those work particularly well.
Anthony Edwards, hell of a series, by the way. We haven't talked about him.
We didn't have time. Yeah, to talk about best individual performance in a game, but that was pretty awesome. Games 3 and 4 in particular. I mean, he was easily the best player in the series, and Julius Randle might have been second. At least as an offensive player.
Crucible survivor. Can we talk about Scottie Pippen Jr.?
Yeah. No, I think
tremendous games 3 and 4.
Yeah, fantastic.
We might have talked. Did we talk? Oh, we talked about it on the last show, I think. Did we?
I think we did. We were probably through.
It's all blur. We were through game. That's what it was, because it was last Friday. We were through game 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Buddy Hield starting. Game 4. Good adjustment by Steve Kerr to force Şengün to guard Podziemski, and then Podziemski went off for 26 points. Another guy who really has survived pretty well in his first high-level basketball. Obviously Steven Adams as well, a guy that you would think he could never survive, but like, credit Ime Udoka for finding a way to have him survive defensively. Credit him obviously as well. And he's got a lot of experience playing against Steph too, from 9 years ago.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, certainly everyone on Minnesota, there was not a single player. They just had their awesome 8-man rotation.
Yep.
I thought Chris Finch did a nice job of going to the guys who had it working, like not going to Rudy in game 3 and 4. And then he responded with that ridiculous game, one of the best games of the playoffs, in game 5.
Jonathan Kuminga.
Well, but he was sick in game 5. That's hilarious.
Okay.
That he actually,
the one game he would have played.
He could have come out and actually maybe had a nice advertisement for himself. He was sick. I have a feeling he might. He could be bedridden the rest of the playoffs. Actually,
there's like you got better ads to seeing Sasquatch than you do seeing him tonight, right?
Kyle Kuzma and Taurean Prince and Brooke Lopez.
Well, yeah. I mean, did Prince and Kuzma technically turn to ash because were they still playing by the? Actually, no. By the end, they weren't. No,
they got.
Right?
They both got taken out of the starting lineup.
Yeah,
as did Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Prince played 4 minutes, and Kuzma was like 15 or something. Kyle Kuzma, I saw this. I think he was 4 of 15 in the restricted area in the series. That funded Pacers rim protection, though. That'll get you. That'll get you. Yeah, so that was really an awful move to get him. Obviously, they weren't going anywhere with what happened with Dame, which was really such a disaster. I mean, just really incredibly sad end to
and it
probably for Milwaukee. And I know you wrote about that. We can talk about that another time. But
yeah.
And any other Crucible survivors or?
Can we say Jarris Walker survived?
Yeah, a little bit. He's been making his threes when he's got an hour to get it off. We will see whether he survives against Cleveland. I can't wait for that series. That series is gonna be fascinating.
Very excited for that. I'm going to games 3 and 4. So that should be fun.
I'm not sure which referee it was that Kenny Atkinson looked at when he challenged that call at the end of game 2 correctly, but that guy turned to ash. He's not around anymore.
What a moment that was.
I love it. And one more guy who couldn't handle the Crucible.
Okay.
John Halliburton. No longer allowed to attend Indiana Pacers playoff games. He can't even come to the game. He can't even be in a luxury suite sitting at the top of the arena. He can't even come to the game.
Unplayable.
He just couldn't handle
handle
a little success.
My goodness.
All right, well, John, I will see you in probably about 4 hours.
Yep.
And we will talk to y'all, me and Danny, tonight after Rockets Warriors. Till then.